name is Stacey Goldman, and I'm the Yoetzet Halacha for Philadelphia and Las Vegas. Today, we are going to discuss the topic of Ketamim, stains. Stains seem to be more prevalent today with women using hormonal birth control, whether in the form of pills or IUDs or other things, and they seem to be staining a lot more. And it's always a wonderment, how can it be that we see these stains and our rabbi, our Yoetzet, will tell us that we can ignore them when we know exactly where it came from? Today I'd like to explain to you how this area of halacha, of Ketamim stains, developed, and how we can understand more where the halacha is coming from and why we're being told this information. One of the concepts that we need to know before we begin is the idea that if there is a doubt in how to proceed halachically, if something is sourced in the Torah, if it's a doraita, then we must rule stringently. Whereas if something is sourced from the rabbis, a d'Rabbanan, then we can go more leniently. Stains fit into the category of d'Rabbanan. So that's one of the first things. Why is that? There is something called hargasha. Hargasha literally means feeling. And in ancient times, it seemed that women were much more in touch with their bodies, and they knew exactly when the bleeding of their period would start. Before it even left the outside of the vaginal area, they knew that they had blood in the vaginal canal. There are three halachic definitions of what hargasha is. One is a violent shaking, after which immediately she would see blood. Another is a feeling of the actual opening of the uterus. And another is a feeling of wetness in the vaginal canal, not wetness outside of that area. Most women today do not have one of these three halachic definitions of feeling, and therefore, when you see blood already outside of your vagina, or on your clothing, or on other areas of your body, it falls into this category of d'Rabbanan, and it's a suffix, it's a doubt where it came from, so we have the ability to rule leniently, lekula, in that area. Another concept is Eino Mekabel Tuma. It does not receive tuma, or a bad definition, impurity. What does this mean? The rabbis declared that if a woman were to see blood on something which itself is unable to become tameh, ritually impure, she therefore does not become ritually impure as a result of that sighting. What do these entail? According to some opinion, colored clothing fits into this category. The Rambam says that colored clothing does not receive tuma, and therefore, if a woman were to see blood on a colored article of clothing that she's wearing, she therefore would not become tameh, because it's a stain and it's not accompanied by this feeling of hargasha, and therefore we can rule leniently. Another example is anything from the sea. This is based on a Mishnah that says that anything that is based in the sea, comes from the sea, is Eino Mekabel Tuma. It does not receive ritual impurity. So what does this mean for us today? Plastic. Plastic comes from petroleum, and petroleum comes from deep under the ocean floor, which most rabbis have decided renders it from the sea. So if you see blood on synthetic, 100% synthetic polyester clothing, it's from the sea, and it does not receive tuma. There is a debate about underwear, because underwear is very close to the body in the area where the blood comes from. So there were some rabbis when underwear first came out that said, this cannot possibly be included in our colored clothing or our from the sea category. How can we be lenient on this? But most rabbis today render underwear just like any other clothing. Now, there's another category where it's a suffix, it's a doubt, but it's a suffix d'oraita, a doubt from a Torah source. And that is if we have anything internal inside of us that then shows up with blood. So this is why when it comes to doing internal bidikot, we are much more strict in terms of what we see, and if we see any red, and it should always be checked out by a rabbi, because that was internal. Another example is intercourse. So if a man, after sexual relations, were to see anything on his organ because that was internally inside of the woman. That also is a doubt that we render for it to be stringent, safek l'chumra. The third example applies to Ashkenazi women, and that's if you were to see blood coming out while urinating. That was considered internal. All of these things, the internal bidikot, sexual relations, and urinating for Ashkenazi women, are considered to mask possibly this feeling of hargasha. The feeling of hargasha could have occurred while those three things were happening. And so because it's a doubt, in a doraita instance, we are more machmir, we are more stringent on that. Another category is called tliya. Tliya is very important because if a woman has an internal wound that she knows could cause blood, or if a woman has some sort of medical situation that can cause blood, like a urinary tract infection, and she knows the source of that blood and that it was not uterine blood, that's called tliya. And that is another reason why even seeing actual blood, you might not be tameh, you could still be tahor, because we can attribute it to that wound or that medical condition that can bring up blood. Always something to discuss with your rabbi or yoetzet. The final category we're going to discuss is size. So one of the things that's important to keep in mind is how different our lives are from our foremothers of old. So in terms of hargasha, this feeling that we discussed, we are not as in touch with our bodies. Also, when we go to buy chicken or meat for Shabbos or whenever, we are not going to our local outdoor butcher, the one who actually slaughters the animals, and stepping in puddles of blood in order to purchase our meat. We are going to a supermarket and for the most part buying shrink-wrapped in plastic packages of cut-up meat and chicken. We don't get bloody going on these errands like our foremothers of old would have. The other thing that's very different about our day and age is hygiene, and that we don't live with body lice and other insects. In ancient times, the rabbi described the constant presence of body lice, both on their body and on their beds, on their sheets. And they say that if you were to say you could never see spots of blood on your body or on your bed sheets, nobody would ever be able to become tahor, because there was body lice everywhere. And without even knowing it, you might have squished a bug either in your bed or on your body, which caused a spot of blood. So the rabbis decreed that any stain that you might see on your body that is less than the size of a penny, some say a dime, and if you're old school, it's the exact size of an asimon from Israel. So if you see blood that's less than that size, the rabbis decreed that this was not rendering women tameh. It's slightly different on the body versus on clothing. So on the body, if you see different stains on your inner thigh, say, and they're all very small and they don't add up to an asimon, then you are not tameh. If they add up to something bigger than an asimon or a dime or a penny, then it's something to discuss with your rabbi, because you may not be tahor. On clothing, if you see different stains on your clothing that are not connected, you can measure each individual stain individually. You don't have to add them together. And if each individual stain is less than an asimon, dime, or penny, then you will not be tameh, you will still be tahor. There are many other categories, and please feel free to reach out to either me or your local yoetzet or rabbi to get more information on this topic. Things that we did not discuss here are toilet paper, sanitary napkins, what you may or may not see in the toilet after you're finished going to the bathroom, and many other categories. So whenever you see blood, it is always a good idea not to assume anything about your nida status, and first discuss it with a yoetzet and a rabbi. And through this information, may we all be able to stay tahor and enjoy our relationships and have more knowledge and more understanding of why the halacha works the way it does. Thank you very much.